Hello students. In our modern business law class, we are discussing the classification, types or kinds of contract. In that we have discussed classification of contract on the basis of enforceability. In our previous class, we have discussed classification of contract on the basis of formation. We have seen that on the basis of formation, contracts are divided into three types. That is expressed contract, implied contract and quasi-contract. Today in this class we are going to talk about classification of contract on the basis of performance. On the basis of performance, contracts are classified into two types, executory contracts and executed contracts. On the basis of formation of contract, the first type of contract is executed contract. What does it mean by executed contract? So executed means already done. Means whenever in a contract both parties have done or have performed their respective work. So in a contract what the parties have decided to do for each other, already they have done that, then that contract is called as executed contract. So their obligation, their duties they have performed, contract is executed contract. What is an example of that? Ram goes to purchase a pen from a shopkeeper Sham. Ram asks the price. Shopkeeper says that this pen is for 100 rupees. Ram gives 100 rupees. He performs his part of contract. Immediately after that, Sham gives the pen to Ram. So even Sham has performed his part of contract. So both the parties to the contract, they have performed their obligation under the contract. Such a contract is called as executed contract. In this contract, nothing remained to be performed. So contract will come to an end. It will be executed. So such contracts are called as executed contracts. Second type of contract is executory contract. Now executory means yet parties have to perform their part of contract. So it is a contract where either one party or both the parties to the contract, they have still to perform their duties, their obligation in future. So in contract, either one of the parties to the contract or both the parties have to perform their duties, their obligation in contract sometimes in future, but now they have entered into contract. That contract is called as executory contract. Thus, a contract which is either partially performed, so half performance is done by one party, or wholly unperformed, that means both the parties have yet to perform, such contract is called as executory contract. So both executory contract is a contract in which that contract is to be performed by either one party or both the parties, that is executory contract. Now what is an example of this? Say for example you require one book and there is a shortage of that book. You go to a shopkeeper and you ask demand for that book. Shopkeeper says that right now he does not have a copy of that book and he will get that copy for you. Then he says that you come after 2 days, I will give that book to you. You say that whenever you give that book to me, I will pay you certain amount or cost of that book. So here that contract is executory contract from both the parties. Both the parties have yet to perform that contract in future. Or you say that there is a shortage of that book, I will pay the price of that book now itself and book that book, reserve that book, and shopkeeper takes that money from you. Here one party to the contract has performed his or her part of contract and yet the book shopkeeper has to perform his part of contract. Such a contract is called as executory contract. So either both the parties have yet to perform or one party has yet to perform. Executory contract. Now next classification of contract is made on the basis of obligation. So it is somewhat similar to executory contract. So on the basis of obligation, obligation means the duty or what the parties have decided to do in the contract. On that basis, contracts are divided into two types, that is unilateral contract and bilateral contract. This unilateral, bilateral, it is somewhat similar like executory contract. Now, what is unilateral contract? So, unilateral contract means it is one-sided contract in which only one party has to perform his promise or obligation to do or not to do something. That means what? Unilateral. Uni means single. Unilateral contract means one party has done or has performed his part of contract. Another party has yet to perform his part of contract. That is called as unilateral contract. What is an example of this type of contract? Say for example, A is going to Pune. A wants to go to Pune. So he goes to a traveling company, traveling agency, and he books a ticket. And he pays the bus fare for his journey from Belgaum to Pune. So today he goes and he books his ticket and he has paid. He has already paid money. He has performed his part of contract. But yet the transport company has to perform the promise in future. Maybe maybe he wants to go, he has booked the ticket after 2 days, 3 days. So yet one party has performed and yet another party has yet to perform his part of contract. Such a contract is called as unilateral contract. Now, bilateral contract. So bilateral contract means unilateral contract, one party has performed, one party has yet to perform. Bilateral contract, both the parties have yet to perform. That contract is called as bilateral contract. Bilateral contract where the obligation or promise in a contract is outstanding, means it is yet to be performed on the part of both the parties. It is known as bilateral contract. So this is a point on which often a question is asked for 2 marks. What do you mean by bilateral contract? Or what do you mean by executory contract? Means none of them has finished his part of obligation or work. So they have just agreed to do something, but they have not performed, they have not done anything in the contract. That is called as bilateral contract. That means yet to perform. So none of them has finished their obligation of work. Example of that: a manufacturer agrees to supply certain goods at a certain price to a retailer after a certain time. So one person who is a manufacturer of masks, he enters into an agreement, agrees that on a particular day he will supply 1,000 masks to a retailer. The payment is to be made at the time of delivery. Retailer says that whenever you will deliver 100 masks, 1,000 masks to me, at that time itself, I will pay the price for them. This is a bilateral contract because the duties or the obligations of both the parties are yet to be performed. Outstanding means they are yet to be performed in future. Such contracts are called as bilateral contracts. Thank you.